Well, it's been a bit of dance music. Somebody even over a coffee said that it sounds great. It's invigorating, so great to see you again after this work in groups and in parallel panels. I hope that working has been fine. I don't know if you know, we had our shadow reporters participating in all the rooms, and they will be reporting in Polish. We know one another a bit. They're sitting here on my right-hand side, the Smart Six, who are here to present all of that to you. May I first invite to stage Karol Olejniczak, professor of SWPS University, co-founder of Ego Research Company. He'll speak about the plenary panels on the territorial approach in developmental policy. Karol is great. We sat at the same table yesterday, so I'm leaving you in the best of hands. That was a pleasure. Good afternoon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be reporting on panel 1 and 2 today. The discussion during the first panel concerned two major threats. Wrapping up the capital issues and the challenges of that policy, I'll focus on the second one, that's challenges. The discussion showed two types of them, strategic and operational ones. Strategic, these are the subjects and phenomena that the cohesion policy has to face. The three most frequent issues were transformation of energy and climate, so adjustment of our systems to climate change and shifting to renewable energy sources. So energy transformation is of key importance to improve the competitive edge of Europe. This will reinforce us rather than limit us. The second challenge for cohesion policy is a balance between competition and cohesion. There was an interesting tension here during the panel. Should cohesion be overarching goal and competitiveness an instrument to reach it, or are they at the same level? If I interpret well, we agreed that competitiveness and cohesion are two sides of the same coin. Reinforcing security was the third thread, and members of a panel said that it must support security also in the social, energetic, and military aspects. There was also an idea to use the investments here in the defense sector, which will give the multiplying effect. Relatively late into the panel came the voice about demographic change and what's going to happen in the labor market. Europe is aging and we've got to stand up against it. Operational challenges, rules, ways of implementing cohesion policy. These were rather some tensions that I identified. Three. First, reacting to current crisis versus following strategic goals. We want to act strategically, but the panelists emphasized that there is the risk of moving away from long-term goals for the sake of case-by-case interventions, centralization versus decentralization in designing and in management. You could see tension, but the principle of subsidiarity will help us find balance. Everyone agreed that involvement of regional and national authorities is important for the efficiency of such policy. Then the final tension, logic of the budget versus logic of economic benefit. The panelists proved that you often look at cohesion policy through budget transfers. That's payers versus beneficiaries. Now, from the perspective of economy, all the members of the EU draw profits from the single market, so we should use this language of narrative that brings us all together. Yesterday and today, there was the message that we are at a turning point. An alarm can be heard. Europe has to wake up. My university focuses on behavioral design, so we focus on the gaps, action gaps. To hear an alarm call is one thing, to wake up is another thing, and to start action and to go into action is an absolutely separate challenge. Interestingly, today's panel, panel number 2, took up this channel and discussed instruments and mechanisms of practical action that we can take up. 5 specific issues that I fished out from the discussion are as follows. The first, in the new cohesion policy, we will have to prove a powerful connection between the highest level priorities and what we do locally and what local effects are. This must be honey to the heart of the evaluators here. There'll be plenty of research. The second challenge, the second idea is there are no territorially neutral policies. That's the message from the panel. So cohesion should be the baseline developmental mechanism. If there is no cohesion, the mechanism of concentration will be launched, which will debilitate long-term competitiveness, limit innovation, and result in destructive social resentments. And that's something that we definitely do not want. Cities can be laboratories, they already are, laboratories for developing an integrated approach to public policy, working on this multi-sectoral approach. Fourth idea, fourth concept, we have administrative potential, but the true challenge is overlapping of that administrative potential. Hence, we need harmonizing, we need simplification. And the last thing, which is very close to my heart and to my research, the essence of transformation, the panel we discuss energy transformation, is the change of behavior. Cohesion policy should focus on behaviors. Goals must be translated into specific changes of specific or target behaviors. Finishing in the spirit of behavioral change, let me refer to the wisdom of our main global competitors. The Chinese, even the longest journey starts from one step. How to translate that into a particular specific activity of you and your organization? Thank you. Thank you very much. That was Professor Karol Olejniczak of SWPS University. Yesterday we had that short discussion at the table about ChatGPT and its uses, and I wanted to say, Professor, that ChatGPT in the context of such professional summaries cannot be your rival. Well, time for another shadow reporter. We also got to meet yesterday. Those evening meetings are very pleasant because they bring us closer. Michał Wolański, director of an institute in SGH in Warsaw. He will speak of territorial accessibility and mobility and territorial dimension in cohesion policy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are believed not to be eager to share our notes at our university. I've got notes from 2 for you. The first panel started from Oksana Zikuna from European Commission presenting her notes, and following upon what Karol said, there was an alarm clock ringing. The CO2 emissions from transport in 2005-22, guess, did they rise or did they drop? We'd love them to drop because we spend money on that, but they rose by 20%. Why is it happening? First, because we are intensively developing roads and improving the competitiveness of road transport compared to others, like railway, for example. Also because we have enforced motoring in rural areas in many European states. Simply, an old car is the only sensible option of getting you to work or to school. The funds that the European Commission wants to spend and the means they want to do are zero-emission cars, fiscal tools, and later there was a very interesting discussion in which Maria Corrales Escribano of the Spanish government, precisely the Ministry of Transport, said that we need wiser projects. Smaller, smarter, better projects are a key to achieve this goal. The goal we have. In the same spirit, we heard Sophie Defaux of the European Transport and Environment Federation, and she gave two examples of projects. One highly effective from Cluj in Romania, where they bought electric buses. This allowed for lowering the use costs, more passengers, lower emissions, low cost, very effective projects. The other negative from Budapest, and I'd like this to be heard here, the construction of the fourth line of the metro. A lot of money, far smaller effect. A major subject was the army and the dual-use infrastructure, not only rail, not only roads, but also hubs. Investments were war. In case of touch wood war, we would be able to provide medical care, to provide ammunition, and also other resources. Connectivity is now gone. It's time of sustainability. At the very end of the discussion, we had a Menti voting, and that Menti voting meant that we had to rank four priorities for it. The first was construction of trans-European networks, and climate neutrality came last. And that's what Karol mentioned. The alarm clock is ringing, but we want to sleep because sleeping is fun. Then the second panel today, the territorial dimension of the cohesion policy, introduction by Wiktor Szydarowski. Wiktor showed how Europe is differentiated. We speak a lot about processes of convergence. GDP, for example, shows how we catch up with the EU's average, but in Wiktor's maps, you could see some other phenomena. For example, quality of air we breathe, quality of air that in our part of Europe is far worse, and we kill ourselves. Availability of homes. It's a problem here. In other parts, we have problems of depopulation. These phenomena call for territorialization of policies, and they call for other actions in different areas. And that's what the territorial tools should serve. The tools that in the recent years have been very strongly focused on crisis activity. Nevertheless, we've got to take several deep breaths. Crises have always been there, they will be there. Let's hope not that bad, but we've got to think about structural activity. We've got to build added value for the people living here. For residents, there was the French example where regions have combined national and EU instruments to territorialize the developmental policy. We had cool examples from Portugal where these are theme-based. Those integrated territorial initiatives are there to solve specific problems. Each of them has a lodestar. Expectations of those integrated projects from the EU: more time, flexible funding, short perspectives are hard, simplification of procedures. Concluding, we believe that now those integrated policies are focused on formal issues and not solving what Wiktor Szydarowski mentioned in the beginning. That's this major differentiation that we have in quality of access to public services, accessibility of houses. And a challenge for the future is focusing on added value. When we heard about parks and rides, about tram lines, okay. Remember, these are projects that would also be developed without territorial instruments. It doesn't mean the instruments are bad. No, it means we've got to start with the goals we want to achieve. Following on the words of Karol, we've got to get up because the alarm clock is ringing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this professional approach. I've got this alarm clock in my head as well. I must be your timekeeper. So without further ado, the following shadow reporter, Małgorzata Kachniarz is the name. Yes, I saw that flash in your eyes. She will summarize climate neutrality and new industrial policy panels. Good afternoon. The first panel was on aligning climate neutrality by 2050 with retaining the competitive edge of European economy in this difficult political and economic situation. I mean, the aftermath of war in Ukraine, recession, growing prices of fuel, and the price and technology competition from China and US. European businesses must be low emissions and innovative. On the other hand, they must be competitive price-wise, which is very hard to align because decarbonization must cost. If we want to decarbonize quickly and cheaply, we've got to use products which come from beyond the EU, and that's already taking place. Panelists agreed that we need quick changes, so our alarm clock is ringing as well. We want the EU to create its own daring policy rather than just be a pawn in somebody else's game. We need courage and political courage. The European economy needs quicker decision-taking and adjustment of decision-making to market changes. There were specific ideas for solutions to make European products more competitive, and so that this competitive were more just. For example, imposing tariffs on non-EU projects, even for the coming 3-4 years, so that in this very difficult period, the European industry survives.
We speak actually not about the development of our industry, but about its very survival. We also discussed the potential of public procurement, which is quite significant, although it's not going to solve all the problems, all of them. Perhaps the product origin from the EU, maybe not all of them, but 80%, perhaps 80% of all components should come from EU countries or in selected areas, perhaps. But made in EU, in my view, this could be a certain vision for all of us so that we could implement. As a result, we would protect our European Union industry. There was even an idea that perhaps we could follow China in subsidizing production, not investments. But this is perhaps a last resort if other instruments were to fail. Towards the end, the panelists noticed that what is of key importance in competition is autonomous production. We have to be clever in using AI solutions in production. We should invest in that. This certainly is going to be coming at a cost. Jobs will be lost, and well, we have to manage somehow. As for energy prices, everyone has been showing that using the renewables should be encouraged, and also energy efficiency should be increased. This is the way to go to limit energy prices. The second panel introduced the regional and social dimensions to the discussion on green transformation. The panelists noticed that there are peripheral regions that very often are vulnerable. Especially we speak about the south of Europe that already now is very much experiencing the results of climate change. But we speak about also some regions dependent on fossil fuels, especially energy-intensive industries. Macroeconomic models show that the results of this transformation, green transformation at the macro level for the EU, they may be even slightly positive. At the level of all the selected regions, there can be quite problematic consequences. Decarbonization, some say 400,000 jobs will be lost, about 40% in Poland. It means that the regional dimension is important in this process of transformation. We have to come to terms with the fact that this transformation is going to be difficult, in some cases even more difficult. In both panels, the discussions have shown that there is still a significant gap between the ideological, political level and the business level, and also the society at large. How to bridge this gap, how to make sure there is proper information flow and social acceptance for those goals that the EU has come up with, and at the same time to take into account the business perspective in the EU policies. Well, that's a question. A number of different answers have been proposed. It's unfortunately impossible for me to mention all of them in my brief summary. Very briefly, what were the threats and perhaps opportunities mentioned? The cohesion policy may play a role in this process of green transformation, but we need to link the investments with the social dimension, not to separate different interventions from the regional funds and the cohesion fund. Those interventions need to be integrated because the social aspect is of key importance in the green transformation. It is necessary to communicate with our citizens and to include them in the decision-making processes. Of key importance, of course, is innovativeness. It's quite obvious, but it was very often repeated in our panels. It was also important, yet another aspect, that we can also think about working together for different regions. Instead of competing, we should work together also at the level of regions. And concluding an optimistic aspect, yes, my time is up, so very briefly, there have been some optimistic voices presented. We believe that in Europe we have resources, we have competences, human infrastructure-related competences, and hopefully those resources will make it possible for us to compete globally. Thank you. Małgorzata Kachniarz, thank you very much for your summary. The next speaker who has prepared and will present a report on the next panels is Stanisław Bienias, President of IDEA Institute. He will speak about economic transformation and the Interreg program. Good afternoon. I will start with the second, if you allow me, because it's a recent event, and within the 3 minutes I will try to sum up the discussions on Interreg. Interreg basically is the quintessence of the values of the EU from the very beginning. The EU was created to make another war in Europe impossible. Those people, the oldest generation remembering war, is smaller and smaller, and Interreg is building cooperation, cherishes common values, fighting stereotypes, prejudice, exchange of information. So as a result, it makes it possible that we can ensure our internal security. So the essence of the EU and the essence, in my view, of the cohesion policy. Interreg is a cohesion policy as a pill, a single pill that is applied exactly where it is needed along the borders of countries. So the territorial area aspect is here, but also other more perhaps abstract borders within the European Union. Interreg, it seems, even more than before, is very much needed still for us to build our community of values in Europe that is more and more divided. Also, we have more and more divisions within different countries. Well, a general introduction and very concrete projects were created. The first one was about the cooperation between Poland and Ukraine on mountain rescue services in the face of the Russian aggression on Ukraine. The program was transformed, and the potential of the program was applied also to medical rescue and humanitarian support assistance. Another example, along our western border, a story of two cities, actually not two separate cities, but one city made up of two parts. We had two perspectives. They spoke about a possible scenario with and without Interreg. They have shown to us how important actually Interreg was. So plenty of optimistic opinions. Those projects were very optimistic, and I'm not surprised that people dealing with Interreg, if asked whether they like their job, they clearly have shown to us that yes, they do. I'm not really surprised because there is hope to those projects. This was a very important dimension that has been stressed in the opening session yesterday. Well, can we change something? What can we do? There is certainly a need for a strong project for Ukraine. Because already now the Interreg supports Ukraine as a potential new member of the EU. What can be improved? Well, the evaluator from the UK has mentioned that Interreg is within a certain bubble, perhaps parallel to the cohesion policy. Perhaps it should be better integrated with the mainstream of the policy. I think that this bubble should be maybe punctured so that this optimism is better felt by all of us here within the policy. So summing up, yes, a strong cohesion policy, strong Interreg, and a strong program for Ukraine. And now during the other panel, the first one yesterday, we spoke about economic transformation. And here the main conclusion from the panel is that the cohesion policy should play a key role in this process of transformation. The cohesion policy was always an element of the single European market. It has been and still is playing a corrective role or perhaps a complementary role, as I would call it, in the context of the single market, especially thanks to its unique potential to gear different solutions to the different needs and situations in different regions, territories, so everyone can enjoy the benefits of the single market. So the cohesion policy should certainly be applied here. It's quite unique here, the way it is involved in the different actors that use its solutions. As we have meetings of, let's say, authorities at the level of the EU, national level, local level, other stakeholders. This is the right environment for innovation in this context. We can come up with new ideas. This is a unique potential of the different territories, of the different regions where they can actually be tapped. What was also stressed is that the cohesion policy is not applied in a vacuum. Whether the programs are going to be efficient, it's going to depend very much on the way in which the ecosystem works in a given place where the programs are actually applied. For this reason, it is important for those different solutions, legal ones, administrative capacity at the local level or regional. We need to have adequate capacities there so that the money from the EU is properly used. In concrete terms, let us support talents, let us support young people. They are actually the driving force behind innovation. We need to give to them best quality of education at different levels, also universities, and high quality of life has to be given to them so that they want to work staying in the EU, not leaving. Let us support young innovators, and the cohesion policy has to be flexible enough so that it can react to different changes, fast changes around. And it should better react and faster react to the needs of people that are mentioned. Now, referring still to the plenary session, we need to have logical, not ideological policies. We had also representatives of the European Commission who said that we should perhaps wait now until autumn this year, when there is more discussion about the new financial perspective. Let us wait a few months, again with hope, optimism, and not with fear. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Stanisław and Bienias. Thank you very much for this summary of the next panels. And now Monika Bartosiewicz-Niziołek, please join us, the head of the Polish Association for Evaluation. She will sum up the discussions on the social dimension and intangible effects of cohesion policy.
Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie. W sferze społecznej oczywiście...
In the social area, yes, we have already achieved a lot thanks to the competences that have been built, job activation, accessibility, but those changes, well, are of a long-term nature, so we should not expect very quick results. The main challenges we have diagnosed in this area, well, first of all, we have our people, well, we are getting old, migrations, internal and external migrations, competence gaps, and the educational system has to be geared to the needs of the changing labor market, and also strengthening the administration and including especially people from regions that are suffering from different problems of poverty. This was just a list. I've got other comments. I'm not sure I'll be able to read all of them, but very briefly, first of all, we have to change the way we think, in my view. So we have to think well in advance of acting. It's even more important than the strategy. No strategy will be able to predict different events and respond to all challenges. Systemic thinking, collective thinking. Well, social problems usually do not concern individual areas, but are usually quite complex and concern different areas. That's why multi-level cooperation is very important. The next thing, well, we should not have too many projects. Many evaluation reports refer to that. In some cases, results are prepared, but then they are not continued. Legislative solutions perhaps need to be prepared. Better coordination of EU financing and local policies, reforms of the system. Yes, I know that those issues perhaps are often repeated, but we have to go on repeating them unless we see change. Another area we should rethink perhaps the problem of fragmentation of goals. I think we need to have fewer perhaps of them, but more general. We should perhaps also consider, well, maybe in the cohesion policy we should think about such problems as housing or local citizens' budgets, especially in the regions that are less privileged. Maybe those are the areas that should also be covered with this policy. Another thing, well, the services should be tailor-made. We should avoid a situation in which we would be copying solutions that have been proven right in some places. In other contexts, they not necessarily can be successful. Other thing that, well, different things, various things, competitiveness and inclusion. Sometimes it's not easy to realize projects in those areas. Very often they are two sides of the same coin, and we have to be aware of that. Increasing flexibility that might block the ability to come up with social innovations. It seems that we should perhaps end our discussion wondering whether we should deregulate. We should start about thinking what and how to deregulate. Think about eligibility criteria. And now, as for panel 2, the cohesion policy has come up with a number of non-tangible effects.
They are harder to measure than some infrastructural effects, but they are of fundamental importance because they are a road sign and they are part of European identity. These are not slogans. We have our results of studies to prove these effects. We need to remember that union is no financial concept. Those values are its heart, and thanks to these values, we still believe in it. There are also plenty of benefits stemming from the development of those values. Please remember, democracy, equality, rule of law, solidarity. We also set a great store by them when they are threatened by populism and disinformation. Populism questions union. Cohesion policy is the only one that holds partnership rules, territorial approach, that should also be included in other EU policies as golden rules. Thanks to the European standards of management and making evidence-based decisions, we reinforce trust, the sense of creation and agency. Reinforcement of democratic processes also results from support of migrant and disabled communities, so groups that are minorities, as well as LGBT+. The Fundamental Rights Charter allows to protect them better, especially at national and local level, because that's where most problems crop up. The principle of access does a lot of good. Still, plenty of those marginalized people are not heard well enough. Let's remember that supporting green transformation also follows the social aspect, investment into competency and creation of local energy communities. It's reinforcement of responsibility as well, and then diminishing the differences that opposes polarization, builds stability in the face of various crises. Two things for the end, what we can do. We know that cohesion policy calls for modernization, and first we need to simplify design of different initiatives, because this is especially important for the NGOs. Another thing has been mentioned here, but I'd like to return to it. Decentralization, so greater decision-making at the local level, allowing it to negotiate at the EU level, because nobody else will answer better the specific needs. According to this Polish slogan, nothing about us without us. Let's remember it after that conference, because it's the only thing that can counteract the geography of dissatisfaction. Thank you very much for this express wrap-up of the most important panels. That was Monika Bartosiewicz-Niziołek. Now, one more person who worked hard to present such a wrap-up. Bartosz Ledzion, a co-owner of Ego Agency. He'll discuss digital transformation and effective implementation of cohesion policy. I just wanted to discuss yesterday's panel on digital transformation, which was totally dominated by one technology. You can guess what it was. That's artificial intelligence, obviously. During the panel, there were 4 areas, 4 key subjects that we've discussed, and I reformulated them into questions. The first question is, what to do to have Europe not only a user of artificial intelligence created by others, but what to do for Europe to be able to participate in that race. At the moment, China and America build their own language models. They are top. European model is somewhere midway through the ranks, and the question was asked whether we need to participate in that race, or rather focus on some other areas, looking for some pragmatic aspects, like looking for AI in economy. Europe has plenty of funds for R&D, yet in case of this technology, this is widespread. There is no single source of financing that would allow financing major investments. It would be good to have CERN for artificial intelligence. Then there is the drain of talents and startups that deal with AI, especially to the US. Well, it's less over-regulated market, and what's very important, easier access to capital. There's problem with it. Well, we have this first Polish unicorn, 11 labs. After the first successes, it moved to the East Coast, US East Coast. There are plentiful examples like that. Then the use of artificial intelligence. In public space, we speak a lot about it, but the uses are really few. It's like with Yeti. Everyone knows about Yeti, but no one's seen a Yeti. Analogously, there are fairly few of those used, so it's very important. Now, development of AI and European values, they emphasized that AI can influence politics, democracy, and community. Europe wants to regulate that technology. We have different acts and bylaws that will allow to regulate that technology, but we are looking for balance, opportunities at creating this technology. The second panel was different. It was about implementation of cohesion policy, not what to support, but how to support. Often this subject is discussed only late, but this implementation model is especially important. The first was on the scattering of the programs. Programs are scattered, and does this help, or is it rather a drawback? The discussion had arguments going both ways. On the one hand, countries and regions can test innovative solutions, which favors better understanding of sectors and local needs. On the other hand, these counter-arguments, consolidation of programs will make it possible to carry out strategic goals and focus resources on specific areas. That's what the Fed does in the US, and that's also the Chinese model. What the mayor of Krakow said yesterday, this decentralization of distribution of funds must be remembered. Also, those smaller programs are more flexible, easier to adapt to potential changes that we may have. The following subject is purely operational, whether we can align focusing on results with clearing the expenditures. So invoices or milestones. Now the deadline for use or the end term for the current understanding is already gone. It's past its validity date, so funds should be paid according to the spend, to the efficiency, and not to the costs. That's a bit of simplification, but how lots of experiences shows in REF, that was a program that was prepared really in a very short time. That shows that there's still plenty to be done, and that these are two aspects that should be kept in mind. First, let's change the mindset of thousands of people who clear projects according to the old system, starting from auditors via the intermediary authorities to beneficiaries. We need to change our approach, our thinking. One more thing which is related to RFF, namely development of appropriate methodology standards that would be used for clearing those projects. Now, a question arises whether Europe is ready to trust the results, or will it follow the invoices and rigorous approach? Thank you very much once again. I'd like to thank all our shadow reporters who have devoted their time for conclusions to present you. We in for one more discussion. We'll ask experts about those conclusions. We'll ask them which of them will be important. This discussion will be in English, although one of the speakers will speak in French. Get your telephones ready and get your headsets. We will have in a moment an option to use your telephones. Please use your telephones and connect to Menti. There will be an opportunity to enter the code. Please be active in participating in this discussion. The moderator will be Anna Kalczyńska of TVP World. You already know her.
Anna Kalczyńska, moderator of the last panel discussion of this conference, and her guests. Bardzo prosimy o brawa. good evening.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much. Can I join you in thanking also our shadow reporters? As a moderator from yesterday's panel, I would only like to thank you so much for your work. I really value your effort in grasping the essence in various discussions, so it's really important. Thank you once again.
So you have Anna here, and I would like to invite to the stage her guests. Mr. Janusz Omarjee, Vice President of the European Parliament. Mr. Ignacy Niemczycki, Secretary of the State in the Chancellery of the Prime Minister Poland. Mr. Kyriakos Kakouris, Vice President of the European Investment Bank. I leave the stage to you.
Thank you very much. So, yesterday we debated the current state of respective areas. Now that we know where we are in reaching the goals, let us move forward. Let's hear the recommendations for the future of the cohesion policy. Dear sirs, so let's start with the first very general questions. After hearing our respective shadow reporters, and all the reports from all the sessions that took place yesterday and today, what key conclusions can we draw for the future of cohesion policy? Let us start with Mr. Yunus.
So please allow me, first of all, to thank you very warmly for inviting me here. And I'm really glad to be here and to represent the European Parliament. I would like to thank everyone, and especially the Polish authorities, on behalf of Roberta Metsola, the President of the European Parliament. Thank you for organizing this excellent meeting. And this meeting is happening at a very special time, because we are now to define the future of our policy. I'm really happy to be here with you, and often I need to speak at the beginning of a conference, but I think that the greatest value is to express one's opinions when we need to sum up everything that has been said, because I think that those will be the solutions that will allow us to shape our future decision-making process. So there will be no future of the cohesion policy without the participation of the European Parliament in all the legislative processes. So we know what will happen in this new programming period 2021-2027, and I must admit that we are aware of all the successes that we had in the past, but also of all the pitfalls that we had in the past. That's why we need to be careful when building our new policy, that it respects in a better way all our future challenges, takes into account those challenges, and that it's based on our values. So all the debates have shown that this great policy is in reality converging with all this series of crises that we have witnessed nowadays. We are witnessing nowadays all over the world, and those crises correspond to a series of revolutions. So first of all, there is this demographic crisis that we need to face. It's a crisis of really great importance for the European Union. There is also a crisis or a energy-related revolution or a climate revolution also that is really important in our debate. And there is also a crisis which is concerning democracy, what we've witnessed is that democracy is being put at stake, and maybe some people are afraid of some decentralization processes. They are afraid of political crises. So what's really important now is to talk about the crisis regarding our values. It has not been mentioned yet, but I consider that the most important threat for our cohesion policy relies in the crisis related to values, because the cohesion policy relies on a very important value, which is solidarity. Solidarity between our member states which need to respect all the solidarity and equality rules all over Europe. We can see the success of this policy, the solidarity policy, because we've talked at length about the GDP, the convergence between GDP and what is going on in Poland, for example, now, and what was in the past. We've seen great progress thanks to our policies, thanks to our programs. So all over Europe, in fact, we see a resurgence of anti-European parties and of nationalism. So I think that this is really worrying. So apart from political debates, it's important to discuss this crisis, because this is a real threat. Those nationalists and those parties are a real threat. So our debate is a real political fight, aiming at preserving European values. This is our main goal. But for us to win this battle, we need Europe to bring specific answers to its citizens. They need to be brought, and it was mentioned many times by our experts, is that those specific answers need to be delivered immediately, because they concern, for example, the energy revolution and its impacts. Regarding the climate, we've talked at length about the climate. Of course, we talked about mitigating all the carbon footprint risks. But regarding regional policies, we shouldn't forget this pillar, which consists on adapting European regions to climate change. We are now in 2025, but we saw what happened in 2024. The whole Europe was really struck by this, for example, the floods and all the natural disasters that we can imagine. For example, in Valencia, in Mayotte, there was such a disaster. So also Germany was hit by flood, and 4 billion losses. This is really great loss, and this is something which should be taken into account in our regional policy, because natural disasters will happen and they will really have an impact on our regional plans. So to finish, I would like to say that we really appreciate, as European Parliament, our joint positions expressed by France, by Poland, by Slovenia and other countries, to tell to the European Commission that, of course, the cohesion policy needs to be modernized. There is no tactical defense of cohesion policy that wouldn't lead to an standstill, to an impasse. So it needs to be modernized. But at the same time, what needs to be kept are those great principles of our policy, and the fact that it needs to be a territorial policy, and that the cohesion policy is in fact a regional policy, because it's about developing regions. And European regions and cities need to be at the very heart of this policy. And I'm finishing really now. Just 1 minute left. I'm aware of the fact that I don't have much time, but we really, it's hard for us to think about the future, because nothing is sure, nothing is certain, and that's our reality. So we've been constantly hit by crises that are unpredictable, and no one would imagine, for example, at the beginning of our last mandate, that we would be struck by such important events that would affect so much the European Union. For example, Brexit. Brexit was the first crisis, in fact. And then what happened next during our mandate was the COVID-19 pandemic. So who would have thought about it? So answers need to be given. For example, also other crises took place, and what we've proven is that European policy was really modern as regards those crises. What happened next was the war in Ukraine, a huge impact on our policy, and there is this Cairo regulation, thanks to which the cohesion policy could be applied directly to refugees from Ukraine. Poland could really help those refugees thanks to this regulation. So we still don't know what will happen next, what will happen in the future. That's why we need to do our best in order to maintain our policies in place. Thank you very much. Thank you, President, for this political aspect that you mentioned. The European Parliament has always maintained our values.
Representative, Chancellery of the Prime Minister, Ignacy Niemczycki, if you could, please, sir, draw your conclusions from this debate.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for being here to discuss this important topic. And first of all, I wanted to really appreciate the European Parliament being represented here at such a high level. Thank you, Vice President, for being here. The European Parliament has a key role to play during the MFF negotiations, and especially when we'll be discussing cohesion policy, I think we can count on the European Parliament to find good solutions for the next MFF. So I'm very, very happy that you're here. And I will actually be referring to one of, or maybe more of your statements. I also wanted to thank the shadow rapporteurs for the work. It was quite interesting for me to listen to the summaries, and I will also try to refer to what was discussed in the panels before. But my perspective is, first of all, a political perspective. And I fully agree with what the President has said, that cohesion policy is one of the key European tools that we have to build democratic resilience. And apart from all the discussions that we had about the territorial impact, apart of the discussions that we have about the economic impact, which are all very important, please do remember that cohesion policy is one of the key tools that we have to ensure democratic resilience in Europe. And also having the experience of other tools being used to achieve similar goals as cohesion policy, I believe that the role of the regions is crucial in ensuring that this tool can be used in the future for building democratic resilience. And I'm very happy to also hear from the shadow rapporteurs that the role of the regions, the role of the local authorities was heavily mentioned during the discussions you had. And this obviously brings me to this discussion that we'll definitely will be having during the MFF negotiations. And again, I very much hope the European Parliament will be active. So what elements of the RRF can we incorporate into the cohesion policy? And judging from the discussions you had during the last 2 days, I think one of the key takeaways is that we need to ensure that those policies, that the cohesion policy has this regional level, that there's a true feeling of ownership. And for me, this is one of the key takeaways from the discussions that you had. It obviously remains to be seen what elements of the RRF we could incorporate into the cohesion policy. And I fully agree that we need to ensure that cohesion policy is a modern policy. We need to respond to what is happening around the world. But I think the general raison d'etre of cohesion policy is quite clear. But I'm also very happy to hear of a number of topics or challenges that the cohesion policy could respond to. And the ones that I have written down that were mentioned by shadow rapporteurs are security, very much in line with the keyword of the Polish presidency, competitiveness, and this brings me to industrial policy. And I think to some extent, cohesion policy is already an industrial policy. It's a policy that is fundamental from the economic perspective, and we have to build on that experience. Not throw it all away and create new instruments that were not tested. That this is the advantage of the cohesion policy, that this is something that has been tested for a number of years. Then another issue mentioned by presidents fighting the climate crisis, and I think so far cohesion policy has been very helpful in doing that. And we see that we'll need to focus also on the adaptation to climate crisis. We've seen the floods all around the world, and if you haven't noticed, this is winter in Poland, and it feels like spring. So it's the climate crisis is really coming. Last but not least, I also feel that we need to be aware of some of the shortcomings of cohesion policy. You probably know that recently a number of errors were reported in cohesion policy. We need to fix that, and we need to fix that quickly. And I think the late start of some programs is worrying, but I don't think, and this is also what I heard from shadow rapporteurs, that centralization will be the solution to those problems.
So now let's hear from the Institution of Finance of European Union, that is the European Investment Bank.
Thank you, Anna. First of all, I would like to thank the Polish presidency for inviting EIB Group to contribute to this timely, very rich discussion on the future of cohesion policy. Before sharing my 3 takeaways about the 2 days, the last 2 days in discussions, just allow me for a minute to say that in 2004, when Cyprus joined the EU, I was working at the Ministry of Finance, and I still remember the feeling of hope and optimism that we had that day of the 1st of May of 2004. We joined the EU together with Poland and another 8 countries, the largest enlargement in the history of the EU. And since then, I mean, this country, Poland, it's a major example, has to show the greatest convergence that probably EU ever witnessed. I wanted to to say that because of this, we have this discussion yesterday and today about hope, and all of us were this part of this. I mean, it's that EU gave us hope and continue to give us hope. As a board member of the EIB for 20 years, I did participate and witness the progress of Poland, and I'm really glad for the invitation. My first takeaway from the discussions the last 2 days is that we must shape the next cohesion policy to support EU regions to prepare for current and future challenges. We are facing shifts of tectonic plates in the global geopolitical economy, but we all know that we are stronger when facing these challenges together as a united Europe. And cohesion is the glue that keeps us united. Preparing future challenges is an opportunity to strengthen our internal cohesion. Some challenges are new, some are familiar, but we know that not all challenges have the same dimension. They affect all European regions, but some regions are more affected. The less developed and transition regions are less equipped to face the challenges and seize the opportunities. And that's where we have to concentrate our effort and focus. We have to invest in these regions, in green energy, in innovation skills, in social infrastructure, in connectivity. That leads me to my second takeaway, which is more discussed again and again here, which is about competitiveness and cohesion. For us at the EIB, the two should keep going hand in hand. European competitiveness is strongly linked to regional development and growth. Cohesion policy is a foundation of our European way of growth, an inclusive growth, sustainable growth, and balanced territorial development. This kind of growth does not happen by chance. It is a result of carefully programmed strategic investments and place-based policies. My third takeaway is that we heard that there are things to keep and things to change in cohesion policy. We heard plenty of good ideas over the last 2 days, and many resonate with our internal reflection in the EIB group. What to keep? Keep the focus on long-term investments, keep the place-based approach and strengthen it, and keep the partnership between European, national, regional, and local level. Regions play a key role in matching investments to local needs. What to change? We need to future-proof the cohesion policy. First, we need to adapt the policy priorities to new challenges. A clear new challenge is mentioned again and again in the last 2 days for all member states is affordable housing. Currently, only 1 billion out of the 389 billions of the available funds is allocated to housing infrastructure for all 7 years. This means that we have to increase it and retain skilled in order to retain skilled workers, especially young people. The EIB is working together with the Commission in order to prepare a pan-European investment platform for affordable and sustainable housing. I do hope that we are going to announce it very soon. But we need member states to join us and to put affordable housing as a priority, not only in the next MFF, but also during the midterm review of the current programs. Second, we need to optimize implementation. The EIB group would welcome the streamlining of cohesion policy to enhance the impact of regional development and in order to have simpler and common rules. we need more incentives for using financial instruments and better integration of financial and advisory support. Things that we at the EIB we can offer and can assure you that the EIB's support for all the efforts for cohesion. Thank you.
Thank you for this insight, Mr. President. And with this, we conclude the first round of questions, more general one. And now I would like to turn to our dear audience and ask you, where do you see the necessity for joint effort in the future of the cohesion policy? So we ask you this question, or our Mentimeter: which area of cohesion policy do you believe requires the most attention in the near future? And as we will be waiting for your answers, they will be changing here and they will be displayed on the screen. Let me just say that the second round will be very brief, as we need to take into account different schedules and of our participants. So here we are. Security of European Union comes high on the agenda, but what do we see? Reducing regional disparities is our first goal that should be met. All right, let me start with Mr. Niemczycki, if I may. We will continue the financing of the future of the cohesion policy, if I may ask. So there is this discussion presently about the changing of the financing and looking for new sources of financing on EU budget. So do you think that this can somehow affect the future of cohesion policy?
Well, absolutely, and thank you so much for this question. So first of all, I think we have to realize what will be happening starting from 2028. So we need to start repaying the money from the Next Generation EU program. And the question is really, where do we find those funds? Do we find them in the EU budget, meaning that we cut all other policies in order to pay back Next Generation EU? Or do we make the EU budget bigger? And I'm right now in a role of the presidency, so I won't be expressing the Polish position, but probably most of you know what the Polish position is. But I just wanted to highlight that even in the survey, we see that the number of challenges that we see ahead of us is increasing. And a number of experts, number of member states are saying that if we are to cope with them realistically, then we need to be bold in our thinking about the size of the EU budget. This obviously will be discussed, heavily discussed, starting from during the Danish presidency, I think. But if we want to ease the pain, so to say, we probably should focus on new own resources as well. So how to finance the EU budget without putting even more strain on national budgets. So I'm very hopeful that we can find those new own resources. We've had those discussions for decades, really, but I think right now everyone understands that we really need to move forward. And I think it's quite clear that some own resources, some of the member states like them. There are some others that only another group of member states like. But still, I think there is a possibility of reaching a compromise on own resources, and I think this would, simply speak, make the EU budget better.
How about Mr. President? Do you see any takeaways from here? And how should we finance the future of the cohesion policy? Do you see perhaps the repayable instruments to be more used than before?
The short answer is yes. But let me give the full picture. The EIB group is the key investment partner of the Commission and the Member States in the current and the next MFF. As I referred before, I mean, in Poland, you know it very well. Since accession, we have we lend to the country 100 billion euros. Cohesion is in our DNA. It is a transversal policy objective for all of our financing next to climate action, and we have significantly stepped up our support in this programming period, both in terms of lending, blending, and advising. I don't want to give you the figures. It's 14 billion euros only last year. It's since 2021, it's 141 billion euros compared to which is only the 1/3 of the EU budget allocated for cohesion. We, at the EIB, we continue to devote almost half of our annual financing to cohesion regions. That is why we have made cohesion as one of our strategic priorities for the period 24-27. Our aim is to contribute to a modern cohesion policy with the goal to support inclusive green and digital transition that leaves no one behind. Looking ahead at the next MFF, it is clear that, as we heard, that EU budget money cannot be enough, and there are huge investment needs and a huge financing gap. So it's definitely we are going to need repayable instruments, but currently only 10% of the cohesion policy is funded through repayable financial instruments. There is room to do much more for projects which generate revenues and savings. The EIB group can help regions and member states to find the best way to combine EU grants with loans, equities, and guarantees. And in order to deploy financial instruments in the most efficient way. It is our business, it's the way we are doing it. It's with loans from the EIB, we can leverage the EU funding by 5, 10, even 15 times. So it's my urge to you, and because of lack of time, it's that it's to look at us and especially the regions. And we do feel that it's the only way that if we to combine the funds from the budget, national sources, and with the loans of the EIB, and leveraging the private sector. This should be our target. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, just to wrap up, Mr. President, we've seen the results on the Mentimeter that participants of our conference pointed out to mainly reducing the disparities between various regions in the European Union. Also, security of European Union comes high on the agenda, and research and innovation. So what directions, according to European Parliament, should be the key in the evolution of cohesion policy?
First of all, we wish a great success to the Polish presidency, and we do follow very closely your statements and your initiatives. I do understand that it is far from being easy, but you do have as well the support, the strong support of the European Parliament. In reality, there's only priorities. And there is a question. What I have in mind, it is important, very important, that Poland, who is currently Europe's leader because of the presidency. Why? Because Poland is a great, big country, great in terms of size, for the cohesion. And in the geopolitical transition
that is currently moving Poland towards becoming a power. And defense is the reason why plays the most important role for security. I do understand also that you have to mix all the polities, because you cannot talk about cohesion without security and a number of other policies. You cannot provide the social dimension. You cannot provide cohesion without the social dimension. I would put all the stake on competitivity, on territorial policy, and the taking into consideration of what seems to me the imperative solutions in terms of defense. And the recent events, from my point of view, seem to show that to those who had past tense doubts on whether defense is necessary, yes, the answer is now. We all need to contribute to that goal. I want to tell you that I fully agree with what you just said, that the policy of cohesion needs to play a role for reindustrialization of Europe, especially on the regional level. We started to do that in a very limited way during the STEP regulation, authorizing a certain number of grants to be provided for entities, small and medium-sized companies, mainly concerning small and medium enterprises. And these are, I think, the plans. You mentioned the plans, your plans for the future, because reindustrialization can lead to a more effective fight against the poverty of some regions that have been somehow left behind within the EU. To conclude, there is obviously the question of broadening and the policy of cohesion, and the policy that will aim at these goals, to make these goals possible. There will be no broadening of the EU with success without a successful cohesion policy with adequate financing, with adequate strength. And this is why I personally do believe very strongly in this policy, because I do assist the cohesion policy as a project, as an idea. It has undergone a number of changes, modifications, amendments, but it's still there. And we, I think, should have a perception, very positive perception of it as a phenomenon.
We have just concluded in time, so thank you very much, all our participants, for your insights, for your expertise. Thank you for sharing it with us. And that concludes this panel. Marcin? Let me just thank the interpreters for their incredible work, especially, yes, I think a round of applause is necessary. Thank you very much.
And I want to say thank you to Anna Kalczyńska and her distinguished guests. Thank you very much once again. Drodzy Państwo, brawa są zawsze miłym dodatkiem. Drodzy Państwo, zbliżamy się powoli do...
Ladies and gentlemen, we're nearing the end of our conference. Before we end, may I ask the organizers of our meeting, we will have addresses in English. May I first invite Monika Sikora, Under-Secretary of State in the Ministry of of Development Funds and Regional Policy.
Ladies and gentlemen,
dear colleagues, dear friends, as we near the end of this time here in Krakow, I hope you found time to have very fruitful, interesting discussions, sessions, and networking opportunities, because this has been a very unique opportunity to reflect on the future of cohesion policy, examining both the challenges ahead and the opportunities that lie before us. It seemed a great moment to think, to learn, and to shape the path forward together. These 2 days of discussions have shown that cohesion policy is not only a key tool for supporting regional development, but above all a platform for fostering solidarity and cooperation among countries, regions, and communities. And through this policy, we work forward common goals that have a tangible impact on the lives of millions of Europeans. Socioeconomic and territorial cohesion in the European Union is a guarantee for building security and resilience. It's also a key condition for deepening European integration, increasing competitiveness, ensuring social peace, and improving the quality of life of EU citizens. And you can witness this here in Poland, where cohesion policy played and continues to play a pivotal and transformative role. And let me underline that the European funds not only support infrastructure, access to transportation, healthcare, boost innovation, competitiveness, they also promote such values as equality, inclusion, equity, and accessibility. And thanks to these funds, many cities, towns, and villages across Poland become more welcoming places to live, work, and do business in. Today's conference has provided an opportunity to reflect on how cohesion policy must evolve in response to new challenges: the energy transition, digitalization, geopolitical threats, demographic changes, as well as the rise of populism. All require both flexibility and bold decision-making. Cohesion policy must not only address these challenges, but also serve as a tool to shape the future of Europe. As the visionary Jacques Delors famously stated, a Europe built on competition that stimulates, cooperation that strengthens, and solidarity that unites. I hope that the findings of this conference will help us to shape a future cohesion policy that effectively addresses the challenges ahead, strengthening the security and competitiveness of the EU. And our goal is for cohesion policy not only to accelerate Europe's development, but also to ensure that it remains a community of values and solidarity, where nobody is left behind. And let me repeat that this is extremely important, especially in times with threats such as increasing rise of populism and other geopolitical threats. Strong regions that are close to citizens are the glue holding the European community. And let's not forget it. This is why cohesion policy has been such a success story. This is something that we have invented and applied over the years, and that should stay with us for a long time. Dear colleagues, Europe is pretty great, something we tend to forget occasionally. It has been the greatest development project based on peace and values, which has brought prosperity to millions of the European citizens. And let's hope and believe that it will move forward. And, of course, rest assured that Poland is ready to take full co-responsibility for the changes we so badly need today. Before concluding, please allow me to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been present here today and yesterday, all the organizers of the conference, or distinguished guests, the representatives of the member states, EU institutions, and the administration, all the panelists, representatives of NGOs, my colleagues, Mr. Balesa will conclude, so thank you also to the Ministry of Climate. This event has been a great success, and I think we all agree that it was very enjoyable as well. I would like to also thank, of course, Mayor Michalski and the authorities of Krakow for hosting us in this wonderful city, which I hope, despite the very full agenda, you managed to enjoy a little bit. And of course, as you can imagine, this would not be possible without the very hard work of the employees of ministries of EU funds and regional development, who have worked for months tirelessly to make this such a great success. And I think they all deserve a special round of applause. Dear colleagues, there's still a lot of work ahead of us, but after this conference, I'm confident that together we can build a more cohesive, strong and resilient Europe. I thank you for being here with us today, and of course, before you leave, don't forget to try some of Krakow's famous pierogi. Thank you very much.
Pani Monika Sikora, bardzo dziękujemy jeszcze.
Monika Sikora, thank you very much. And now Krzysztof Bolesna, Secretary of State in the Ministry of Climate and Environment. Some applause.
Hello. Listen, I'm the last person standing between you and the weekend, so I'll be brief. It's been a joy. This event's been a joy. So many discussions, good inspiration for our work going forward. You all here are friends of cohesion policy, which showed on the slides. Climate and energy was fourth in line, I think. I don't agree with this, but you know, again, it was a democracy, so that's the result I need to put up with. I like to conclude with 3 points. First point is that there's no question that we need to grow. We need to grow. And in Europe, we have a certain quality to the growth we want. It has an element of environmental sustainability, it has an element of resource efficiency, social justice, and we like our long weekends. I wouldn't like to live anywhere else in the world because we have our European way of life. And we need to protect it. The second thing is that it's extremely difficult to protect this European way of life because the world around us is changing. And it's really difficult to keep the values unchanged if the world is changing, and we also need to change our ways to keep the European way of life. And the third point, how to do it. And that was the topic of this conference as well, and I have a full book of notes. For me, it's quite clear that competitiveness and security are very important elements of going forward. And emphasizing just transition as well. And for me, just transition is the same coin, second side of the same coin as cohesion policy. For me, just transition is basically cohesion. So, again, for me, I have some favorites going forward. What should be included in the cohesion policy going forward from the perspective of climate and environmental policy, because this is my focus. Certainly, money for grid investments. We'll need to electrify everything, decarbonizing, so we'll need money for networks. We'll need money to enable people transition to more sustainable transportation and more sustainable heating. Just let me give you one interesting fact. In Poland, we've used European money to transform around 1 million of individual houses to give them more sustainable source of heating. 1 million. We'll still have a long way to go, but 1 million is already taken care of. And of course, competitiveness and building new industries. This, in my opinion, should be another focus of cohesion policy. And something that is not obvious, because it's often forgotten in discussions in Brussels and also in capitals around Europe. Money for nature restoration law, money for climate adaptation. So elements where you really struggle to get the return on your investment. This is where cohesion policy will be important as well. So a lot of food for thought, and a lot of things to continue the discussion during our presidency. Again, I'll join Monica to thanking you all for participating and the organizers for having us all here. And now you can enjoy the famous Kraków zapiekanka and many other local delicacies, and enjoy your weekends. And thanks a lot for staying with us to the very, very end of this conference. Thank you very much.
Krzysztof Bolesta, bardzo dziękujemy.
Krzysztof Bolesta, thank you very much. Now you probably remember pierogi and zapiekanki are the two things that were recommended at the very end by the people who wrapped up this meeting. Well, we've reached the end of this conference. I hope it's been such a pleasure for you as it was for us. Do join us at other events connected to the Polish presidency and participate actively in discussing cohesion policy closing, and it will be a perfect passage in transition into the weekend, is a joint lunch. Thank you very much for being with us for 2 days, and I wish you a good weekend. See you next time.